Hello, everyone. This is How to Become a Milleniare Season 2. Today I have Jonathan Redwin with me. He is my CTO, my employee number one. And today I wanted to kind of switch it up and, have a discussion of how did I get to this point to where, now we have an employee and now we are growing. We're now an accelerator and we're moving faster than I ever could have alone. And kind of just get into that process. So just kind of as a background, so when I first started this project, I couldn't code. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was slowly but surely trying to find the right person to come on this journey with me so that I could have one of the most valuable resources that I needed, which was a developer. So for over a year and a half, I was going out and going to hackathons and hack nights, trying to be around other developers and get embedded into some different communities to try to learn who I could just meet to have some conversations. So luckily, I finally, through a mutual connection, met a developer who I was trying to first meet and come on to work with. It turns out he was already working at another company. And the timing wasn't right. So actually I reached out to him again 3 months later, and he told me that if I had talked to him about 2 weeks earlier, we might have been able to work, but he had the perfect person for me to talk to. And in walks in Jonathan Redmond. So we meet literally 30 minutes after he told me about Jonathan. I told him, hey, just do an introduction for me, and he did, and then we had, I believe, lunch the next day, and then 2 days later we had coffee, and so we decided to work together for a month just to test each other out and to see what happened. So might I ask, Jonathan, when we first met up, man, what were some initial first thoughts, red flags, or what was the thought process when you first met me?
So when I first heard about you, before we actually talked, the experience of a lot of software engineers is that you get people approaching you saying, I've got an idea.
Right.
And everybody's got an idea. And with that, you come to sort of recognize that someone really needs to be bringing more to the table than just they have an idea.
Right.
You yourself have ideas. The success or failure, not only just purely on a technology standpoint, but on a business standpoint, is very much determined by the degree to which the person has actually executed, has done something, has actually delivered. And so when we actually met and we discussed what the current state of Follow My Cow was and what you had accomplished at that point and the direction you saw things going, I was impressed by the fact that you, despite not being a developer yourself, had managed to deliver quite a bit. And that to me was sort of the key signal that this was a different situation. That execution on your part, I think, is critical to not only bringing in people like software engineers, but I think any kind of talent that you want to bring into a startup, if you have not been able to execute and deliver something tangible, not just ideas and dreams and plans and written up documents, but actions. If you can't do that, then what's going to convince someone who has experience and formal training and a skill set to take the risk of joining in your venture? I think that's the critical difference.
Definitely. So we began to talk. We started going back and forth, and we were working together. And you came to a pretty pivotal moment to where you had an offer on the table at another company, and you could either dive into this startup and really just fully engage and commit to doing that. So kind of walk us through a little bit of that and what leaned you to wanting to come into this full time.
So the other opportunity I had was a pretty exciting opportunity in and of itself. I would be stepping into a leadership role at that company and not just taking over an existing team, but be able to grow my own team. And that was very appealing in some ways. It was an established company. They had been around for quite a long time at that point. They had solid revenue. They were not in any way a startup. But the the two key factors for me that made Follow My Cal very appealing were, one, that this is not an established, defined business. It's a burgeoning idea that has been seeded and is growing, but the direction and the shape that it takes is yet to be determined. And the opportunity to have a hand in that, I think, is incredibly different and a very exciting experience in comparison to just shaping, say, a team within a very well-defined, established company. And then I think the second thing is, at least for most of the people that I know in software engineering, there's a certain romanticism to the idea of the startup world and the startup life, the idea of taking on a big challenge, being able to potentially become very successful because of the fact that there aren't established known borders and boundaries. It's an open world. Where are you going to take it? When you join an existing company as part of their team, certainly you have input and a voice in things, but it's not the same as being at the helm in the leadership of the company, where you are setting the pace and the direction and how far you go. You in most other companies, you're not going to walk in and go, I think we should launch a whole new product line or set up a vertical in this direction. But in a startup, there is that opportunity, and so that's very exciting.
Definitely. So after you made the decision and decided to work with me, which I'm still very appreciative and happy to be working together, now we're fully diving into Follow My Cal and getting some things going. What have been some of the things you've worked on, and what are some things you're excited to be working on over the next year?
Well, I think there's two different areas in my mind. There's sort of two different things. One is the business side. As an engineer, you don't often get a lot of exposure to or interaction with the business. You receive information about what are the business's goals, or what are the verticals we're going after, or what are product requirements from clients, but you're not part of shaping the plans. You're not sitting there prioritizing a product roadmap. You're not involved in pricing models. You're not looking at budgets. Maybe in some, again, limited context, the budget for your team, but you're not sitting there sort of surveying and discussing and brainstorming how are we going to make things work with the resources we have, looking at the whole budget and seeing where you can trim here or there, or where you can get extra resources from. So that's been really fun and exciting, the opportunity to kind of get my hands involved in the business. From an engineering standpoint, I think there's a gigantic list of fun and exciting things. One is that, unlike a lot of other jobs where the specific task at hand is kind of well defined, well understood, you're just doing it differently. The analogy I always give is, think of say a civil engineer building a bridge, right? It's a different gap that needs to be spanned by a bridge, but the processes and the things that you do to build a bridge are very well understood. And so you're going through this very clear-cut process to achieve a goal. For a lot of things that we're doing, a lot of the integrations that we're considering tackling, a lot of the data acquisition that we need to do, even some of the analytics that we're talking about, this is sort of, not that people haven't done similar things, but this is sort of its own little set of problems that are in a sense novel, and that novelty, I think, for most engineers is always exciting. Sitting down and going, all right, Apple isn't real big on making it easy for third parties to integrate with their iCloud system, and there's specific things we want to get done, and how do we get this done? That's presents its own set of challenges, and is pretty exciting. So those sorts of aspects. There have been several things along those lines on the engineering side that are quite fun.
Amazing. So as a last little fun question, tell us a little about yourself, man. Tell me, what are some things you enjoy? What are some things you do in your pastime? About, what are some things you worked on in the past? Yeah.
So I guess some things that I've worked on in the past. On the technical side, one of my things that I've really enjoyed has been the research work that I did in graduate school, applying machine learning to bioinformatics problems. So we were studying protein folding, which is its own crazy world, and we were using advanced techniques from artificial intelligence to try to predict how things would unfold in the body. And specifically, we were even working on HIV and trying to understand it and its processes better. So that was really interesting time, and the research lab that I was in was a really good group of people. We worked on some good stuff, published a paper. In terms of my pastime, what I like to do for fun, I play drums. I'm not very good, but I don't have enough time to practice. I like to read pretty broadly. I think that in part ties into being good in the startup world and being entrepreneurial, is just having a really broad knowledge of what's out there in the world. Reading, I mean, anything and everything from things specifically on business to things about life and philosophy and outlooks and history. It's often quite amazing to me where critical ideas that change people's lives or change companies that determine successes and failures come from very outside of where you would think they would be coming from. And so to me, it's always fun to kind of just, I'm a very curious person, to explore the world of human knowledge. All right, this is a subject I don't know about. Let me pick up a book on it and read it. So I enjoy doing that.
Right. And actually stemming with that too, one of the most amazing things you told me when we first met was that you had some experience in working in some different places in the past. Mm-hmm. One being on Bourbon Street. So even from going from there to code, like how did that transition happen? Like how, like one, as you can see through this interview, y'all, like he is extremely good at communication and like has a very world view of like how to deal with people, which is incredible. But he also knows how to break things down into systems and get stuff done, and that's one of the most amazing things I thought about when I met you. Can you kind of like?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I initially went to college studying physics and dropped out. Came back to New Orleans, where I'm from, and started working on Bourbon Street. At first, it was supposed to just be, all right, I'm going to take a semester or two off and kind of figure out what direction I want to go, because I wasn't really happy with where I was heading when I first went to college. And that sort of ended up becoming more of a mini career. I was there for several years. In the last few, I was managing nightclubs. But for me, the realization was, one, while in many ways managing nightclubs is a very challenging and very difficult job, and it can be rewarding in many ways, I'm more of a knowledge worker is kind of my personality. And so I was starting to realize that this probably isn't a career that I'm going to be super happy with. It has superficial appeals, right, in the sense that it's kind of a fun party lifestyle and whatnot, but it also has a lot of difficulties. And it was at that point that I decided that maybe going back and finishing up college would be the right choice for me, which I feel like it has been. It's turned out pretty good. Went back, got degrees in computer science and mathematics. Hadn't planned on getting the math degree, but along the way I found a real passion for math. That led to graduate school and eventually working for IBM. And from there, it's been sort of a move. I discovered that while IBM is a great company and I worked with a lot of brilliant people there, the gigantic, enormous apparatus that is IBM is not an environment that I feel like I thrive in. So for some people, that's a perfect environment, and for me, it's been kind of a journey into smaller and smaller until now I'm here in a startup where I feel like this is a pretty good space where I have the opportunity to really grow and to as we talked about a minute ago, explore and expand a lot of different skill sets on the business side, on the technical side. In very large organizations, you tend to get your little sliver, and this is what you become, the world's greatest expert in.
Right.
But you don't see much beyond that sliver. And for me, kind of as we mentioned a minute ago, I love that delving into, here's a new topic I don't know anything about. Let me delve into that. And so in startup life, you kind of have to wear every hat.
Right.
And that to me, I think, is, for my personality, more appealing.
Amazing. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of How to Become a Milleniare. The journey is going to continue and continue to come in and see what's going on with Follow My Cal and what we have going on over here. So thanks again, Jonathan. And
Thank you, Richard.
yeah, well, we just got done with a CTO meeting. We're going to have plenty more things to do over the course of the day. So we're going to get back to it. So thank y'all.